Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session for SAS Macro Language 1 Essentials. So, this macro language 1 essential is actually the basics of macros and how one can automate the code by writing a macro program. All right. So here let's have a just or a glimpse of topics or lessons which we'll be covering. So very first chapter would be introduction, where you'll get introduced to our course, logistics, purpose of your macro facility, program flow, and solutions. Then lesson two or chapter two would be all about macro variables. So there are nearly six topics in this. Introduction to macro variables, automatic macro variables, macro variable references, user defined macro variables, delimiting macro variable references, and macro functions. At the end of every chapter in your PDF book, you have solutions for the exercises, for the practices, for the demos, for the activities. That is what it's telling you have solutions at the end. Chapter 3 would be all about macro definitions. So what is a macro definition? How you write a macro definition? All this is covered in this chapter. So we'll define and call a macro and we'll see what macro parameters are. Lesson 4 is all about interfaces, wherein a data step interface and your SQL interface, how one can create macro variables, and you can indirect reference the macro variables and creating macro variables in SQL. Then fifth lesson would be all about macro programs, conditional processing, parameter validation, iterative processing, and will understand the concept of global and local symbol tables. So ideally there are 5 lessons where we are going to go ahead with covering all this topic. Sixth is just about how you can explore more into macros. That's nothing as a lesson, but it's just a practical overview. All right, so this was overall what we are going to learn with macros. So let's begin with our very first lesson of macros. So please keep your PDF book handy. Like, so this is your PDF book where the topics which we are covering on the slides, you will find those all topics or those slides here on the PDF as well. And this is where the slides are. Okay. And for the new people who have joined, this is just the same slides which we are going to see in our presentation. And of course, you will be having exercise and demonstrations. So this is how you will have the exercises. So you'll have to work on this topics as a self-study, or I will also take it during the sessions. So these are some of the exercises for your lessons. So this was only for the first one. So moving ahead, we'll see it all detail how you can work on every exercise also. So let's move ahead with our lesson 1. So lesson 1 is all about introduction. This covers 3 topics: course logistics, purpose of your macro facility, and macro program. So to begin with, let's understand what are the course logistics. That means we'll understand our course data or the data files which we are going to refer. Okay, then we'll identify the interface of the various SAS programming softwares, and will specify the naming conventions of the files used for your program. We'll define there are 3 levels of exercises. We'll explain the expanded learning of this course, and will execute your SAS program to create your files and check your data. Okay. So during your training, the concept which you will be learning and you have data which you'll be working on is actually going to represent as a fictitious organization named as Orion Star Sports and Outdoors, sorry. So this organization actually deals with our sports goods. They have their sale with three types. They have the sale with retail stores, catalog sale, and online sale. Okay, so the organization, as I said, it's fictitious. It's just giving us the glimpse that how one you will be working into a live project with the live scenarios. The same thing during the training, you will be facing the scenarios here on which you'll be learning the various concepts. Okay, so just get familiar with the organization's data. It's called Orion Star Sports and Outdoors. So understand the input source of data would be all about the sports goods. And of course, because it's an organization, you'll be dealing with the information about employees, you'll be dealing about the data for orders, for customers, suppliers, and the data would be in various types. Either it could be SAS data sets, it would be your raw files, or it could be your raw files, which are standard files like Excel sheets as well. Okay, so these are the data which will be saving or which will be using. It is stored for us in various format as it is shown here. Yes, moving ahead, for our training or whenever you'll be working as a SAS programmer, SAS provides you three various interfaces of programming softwares, which is SAS windowing environment, SAS enterprise guide, and SAS cloud application, which is SAS Studio. So these two applications are desktop installations. All right. So most of the time, this is actually a paid versions of SAS, which is available. Apart from this, SAS has developed a cloud application which is free for everyone for those who are learning programming environment or programming of SAS. SAS has developed this cloud application. To use this cloud application, one has to simply create a SAS profile on SAS.com website and you can start using this application. All right. So these are the various softwares of programming environment. We are going to use SAS Studio. So your windowing environment looks in this way. Okay, it is a programming environment. So obviously you're going to have an editor window, a log window, and an output window. And at left hand side, you have the area where you could see the result tabs and explorer just to see your input tables. Okay. Then your enterprise guide application is again an application which is an installed application. This application is programming as well as point and click application as well. One can write a SAS program and here also you can have a code window, a log window and a result window. Whereas the application is cloud application which we are going to use called as SAS Studio. It's a web application of SAS. It again has, because it's a programming environment, we are going to write a program. Hence, we have a code window, we have a log window, and a result window. So, what is a log window? A log window is nothing but a window that a programmer executes a code for execution. The information related to that code about any errors, any warnings, any notes, whether it is executed successfully, all that message appears into log window. And if your code is generating any report, that appears into a result window. Okay, so this is how the cloud application looks like. So very simple and a genuine question that which application you will be using during your course. So we are going to use our SAS Studio. Okay, so during your training, the course files which you are going to refer is for the data for Orion Star Sports and Outdoors. Apart from it, your course data files also consist of the ready to use codes for this particular SAS topics. So understand the course code, how it is saved as a naming convention. So it starts with M1 because we are undergoing the training for macros. The naming starts as course 1. 04 indicates it's a lesson. D indicates it's a demo. 01 and its extension either it's A, B or C. In SAS, the course files is always saved with this icon with a running man with a red dot. So if I show you this interface of SAS Studio, so here I had created a folder for macro and have uploaded the files which I have emailed you. So this is all these SAS data files which we are going to use. The data files or the SAS tables ends with an extension of .ss7b dat. So this extension indicates these are SAS tables. So if you try to open it, it will open as SAS tables with rows and columns, similar like your Excel sheets. Okay, so this is how it is. Moving forward, see this file which has an icon of running man with a dot and has an extension saved with the name and an extension is .ss. So this indicates is a SAS program file. Same here. This is the program files. M1 indicates macro, 01 indicates it's lesson 1, E is exercise, 02 it's a code. So when I double click this, it will open into a code window. So it's a code. All fine. So this is how your macros naming convention for the files for the existing codes is all about. All right. Okay. So Vikram, Dharni, Arun, I hope so far it's all good for you to understand.
Yes, Ashwini.
Good. Vikram, Arun.
Yeah, it's a little quick, but yeah, I got it.
Okay, great. Fine. Good. Thank you. All right. So three levels of exercises we have: level 1, 2, and challenge. So this exercise we have in our PDF book. So at the end of topic or every concept or at the end of your explanation for your specific concept, we have exercises to be done so that you get some hands-on revision on it. So level 1 is very simple. They have provided the instructions to how to execute the exercise step by step. Level 2, less information provided, whereas level 3 is all about just a scenario is provided. You need to explore how one can solve these exercises. For that, you'll have to undergo or you have to read through the online documentation of SAS called as support.sas.com. Okay, it's like an online documentation from SAS that wherever you are stuck into your programming with any type of topic where you need to know to read something extra, you can go on this support.sas.com website and you can search for it for your current challenge exercise to get solved. All right. So extending your learning, yes, we have your course data. I have provided you the PDF book. And to read more into detail, you have your SAS documentation online available. All right. So to work with this, let's one get first connected to your data files. So you know very well that in your whenever we start our session, you need to first connect to all your data sets via library or to create a library. Hence, we have created a libname code file and we have saved it. So this is where I'm giving this command where I'll be creating a library called Orion, where it will connect to all my data files which are saved in this path. And it's going to understand with this keyword libname. So in SAS, the statement always begins with an identifying keyword and it ends with a semicolon. So this is a statement where we'll be creating a library in SAS with this name of Orion And a library is nothing but this path where you are connecting into SAS environment. So all the data files which are in the external path of this folder, which is saved on the cloud server at MC1, all these data sets will be connected into SAS environment and will be referring this through a library reference called Orion. So now when I execute this lib name, so see this is the code window. So this is the log where it's giving you the information that this was the statement you have executed. So they have given a note telling libref Orion was successfully assigned by using an engine V9. So it's version 9. It's an engine of SAS. Version is 9. And the physical path where we have all the SAS tables, which were this, is now getting connected into SAS. So where do you see this library Orion? So if you check in this left hand side pane of SAS Studio, you have this tab called libraries. Within this, you have list of some predefined libraries already. So this is where we have created our Orion library. So if you double click or you try to expand this, so you have all these data sets available. All right, so these are the tables which we'll be using throughout our training. So whenever you want to refer a specific table, you are going to refer it with your two-level dataset name, like its reference name of library and its physical table name. Okay. So how we refer it and how we'll be working it, we'll see all in details while we move ahead. Yes, so that we have done. So let's understand the purpose of macro facility. So before going with this, a quick question from all of you people who are currently attending the training, are you people aware of macro language? If anyone have used it earlier with some other programming references? Yes, anyone has any exposure to macro language?
I know they are used in Excels, but I have not used them, Ashwini.
Yes, very true. Anyone else? Others? Dharni, Vikram, Arun?
I know Ashwini, macros and macro variables, percent let percent. Those I know because in SAS only I learned before class. Yeah.
Okay, great. Vikram, do you have any exposure to macro language earlier?
No, I don't have that much experience with the macro.
No problem, no problem. All right. So macros, as very correctly Priyanka said, that in case you people have used Excel in your career earlier, um, it is a language. It's an independent language. It is used for automation of your process. Yes, in Excel we do write macros. It's doing the same concept as what we are going to see here in SAS. So macros is an independent language. It's an independent facility altogether. We as a SAS programmers, we are going to use it while writing your program to automate your program and to simplify your programming time. That is where we are going to understand the purpose of macro facility and how we are going to use it into SAS environment. So we'll state the purpose and we'll view certain examples. So before moving to understand the purpose, let's understand what this facility is. It's called as a facility. Yes, because it is actually a upgradation, or what I can say, it's an augmentation to your base SAS coding. Or even if you write SQL coding, it's an augmentation. Augmentation is something enhanced we are using. So it's going to be a facility which we are going to use in SAS environment. So it's actually termed as a text processing facility for automating and customizing your SAS code, and you can minimize the amount of code that you must enter. So when this facility is to be used, like for example, now you have a scenario in your business requirement that every day you need to generate a list report with the same table. Okay, now of course it would be a daily report. And when it comes Friday, you should submit a separate report like proc means, which is going to be your summary report. Okay, so being a data analyst or a SAS programmer, we are going to be busy with various projects or with various tasks. So you will never remember at what time your this particular report has to be execute. Sometimes you may miss out also. So it will affect your business later on. So to avoid this, we are going to introduce, or the programmers use macros. So when it is on the basis of a daily report, for example, you will be writing proc print procedure, which creates a list report, which is a daily report. And it is scheduled to be executed every day in the morning 9 a.m. So being analyst, you are never on the system 24 by 7 and you are busy with various projects. So for this particular project, this report has to be executed at 9 a.m. with the underlying code executing for your reference table. So in that case, your macros play an important role in this particular scenario, where you write the code in such a way that you automate it, you give the instructions to SAS that on daily basis, it should execute your proc print, which gives you the list report at a specific time, okay, on a specific table, and you give the condition in your code in such a way that in case if it is your weekday Friday, that Friday at a specific time, you will be scheduling this program that it should get execute, maybe either it's a evening report as it is a weekly report. So every Friday it should execute your report for a code of summary process. So your summary reports is created by either proc means or proc summary. So this is where it will save your programming time and we call it as automating. Hence, it's a independent facility which is used to customize your SAS program and for automating it to minimize the amount of code that you must enter. So this facility supports now what you can write within this macro. You can write symbolic substitution within SAS code like your macro variables. You can automate the production of your code. You can conditionally construct your SAS code and you can dynamically generate a SAS code. So we are going to see all these four steps when we are going to learn macro facility or we'll be generating one of the macro programs. All right. So to make it more understandable, let's understand this through our current program. So it's telling substituting system values. Now understand this. It's a procedure of generating a print output. Print here is does not mean that we are connecting to a printer. It's just like you are going to create a report as a list report in your output window. So it's going to work on a data called Orion.customer with this title, with this footnote one. So you get two footnotes, one and two. So if you see this, it's listing some footnote information telling that your report should always be having the footnote telling when it was created, that is the time, the day, and the date. And it should also give the information that which system requirement is using. So it's telling it's using Windows system and which version of SAS. So here, this example they have given it SAS 9.3 version. Currently in industry SAS 9.4 version, 9.4 is the version of SAS which has been used in programming. Okay. So this information where you every time it's not going to be feasible for us to type it into your program. It's very tedious job to type the small things about day, time, date, system information. So all this information is actually stored into SAS environment and we term it as automatic macro variables. So what is it? How can one use it? We'll all see it in detail. But this type of code which is used or which has been used for generating a daily report can be automated where it will fetch in the system informations automatically and can generate the report. Okay. So that's what it's telling, substituting system values And we are going to use automatic macro variables to minimize the time of coding. Okay, all right. So you can, apart from system defined values, we can also create our own macro variable values, and we can use it to substitute the values for recurring value in your code. So if you observe this code, it's actually the code where it's generating two reports. One is proc_fric and one is proc_means. So this will create a frequency report. This will create a summary report. And here you are working to subset the data on the year value of 2011. So this value is repeating every time in two different procedures. So it's not feasible to waste your time every time to simply type this year value. You want to extract this year of 2011 from an existing column of order date where you are using a function called year. So next time the same code is used, but now you want to subset it not on 2011, but maybe on the current year values. So once you create a macro variable on this, you just need to reference it in your program. And here it is where this symbolic rep substitution occurs. And this is because depending on your data values, we term this values getting substituted by creating our own macro variables, which are termed as user defined macro variables. So you can use it in your program again to minimize repetitive coding in your program. So conditional processing, yes, one can also write conditional programs with macros. So as I gave you the example of daily report and summary report. So if it's a daily report, you are going to write procprint and you'll give a condition to SAS for macros to be introduced, where you tell SAS that in case if your system day is Friday, then it should execute proc means. If it is not Friday, then it will keep on executing proc print as per your scheduled time. Okay, so this is where macro will help your program to execute as you have scheduled. So this is where you are saving your time of programming, and it is called as automation. Yes, macros can be used to avoid repetitive coding. So see here, you're referencing the year 2012 as a data set to be executed in this proc print. Here the data is Orion.year 2013, Orion.year 2014. So if you observe the first letters of the data sets or the words are same, but only this part is changing. So if case your data values are dynamically changing like this, one can also avoid repetitive generation of the SAS code by using macro facility. Okay. So it's just an introduction for you to get understand that how a macros can be used in various scenarios. So if you observe this current code, you'll find that we are actually creating various data sets from a single table where you are selecting the values by using select when expression, where country values are AU, then output should go to your output new data set you are creating AU. If the country value is CA, it should be going this current observation with the CA table. Okay, so now you are aware this data step that you are creating multiple data sets from a single data set on the conditions, correct? So this is again, if you see, it's a repetitive thing, and the same code can be used on a different scenario where in case if you are using a cars table and you want to create tables on different types of cars like sedan, SUV, truck, wagon. I hope you remember in our SAS Studio, we have an existing permanent library, and that library is termed as SAS Help Library, correct? And within SAS Help Library, we do have a table which is called as cars. And this cars table consists the information about cars, model, make, origin, type. Okay. So this is what make, model, type. So depending on this various type values, you want to direct from this data set the respective cars to that particular data so that in a single data set you create multiple data sets. The code which you are written will be the same logic, but only the input source and the name of the data file will be changing, correct? So you are going to write the same code as you are doing here for country with cars. So we'll see how one can automate this code where it can be used on various tables, which creates the same result. Okay, so that's what we see. It's a data driven application. Depending on the data value, you are creating multiple data sets. All right, so you create separate subsets of selected data set for each unique value of selected variable. So with this concept, you will be seeing how one can create multiple data sets from a single data. So it becomes like a base code if you write a macro, and you can pass on any table for which it will be used as a standard program. All right. So hence macros make your tasks simple. So efficiency of macro-based programs. So it's telling macro techniques can reduce program development and maintenance time. So very correct statement as I'm telling since first slide. That is just to minimize the coding. And you can use this code of macro on any input source of table. So you write your program only once and save it in the memory. Hence, it's telling that your macro is a technique which can reduce macro program development time and maintenance time. The efficacy of SAS macro depends on its underlying code, very important part. Okay, regardless of whether your SAS code was entered manually or generated by macro techniques. So all this we'll see one by one. So at this point, just understand that macro is a facility for us where we are going to use this programming concept to automate your code where you can save your programming time. So how one can create this macro applications? So there are three steps. So first step is you'll be writing and debugging a SAS macro without a macro coding. Okay, then we'll understand the second step, how one can generalize the program by replacing hard-coded values with macro variables, and this will be covering in lesson 2 or chapter 2. Whereas in chapter 3, or it's a step 3 of macro facility development or application development, the step 3 is will create a macro definition with macro parameters. This you will be covering in lesson 3. Whereas fourth step of your macro application is will be adding macro level programming for conditional and iterative processing. So this will be covering in chapter 5. And step 5 would be will add data driven customization. Again, it will be covered in lesson number 5. So these are the 5 steps if one have to create macro programs we are going to follow, and every 5 step will be learning with a business scenario and its concept in various chapters. All right. So before moving it, we just got introduced about macro. It was telling macro is a text processing facility, correct? So what does this text means? So the underlying program which you're writing, see if you observe this slide carefully, it's telling you have written the lines and every line is ending with semicolon. You are quite familiar in SAS that every statement begins with an identifying keyword, ends with a semicolon. It's similar like your English statements where we know that in English language, every statement begins with an capital letter and it ends with full stop. You can compare this concept with your programming with SAS that every statement starts with an identifying keyword, ends with a semicolon. So you have the steps of your program and you are going to automate it by writing a macro. A macro facility or a macro program is always symbolized with a percent sign. So how it represents, how we call, how we create, we'll all see this detail one by one. So major thing what it is, it's telling it's a text processing facility. Why it's telling text processing? It's because even if the code which you are saving it as macro, it consists of some numeric values. Those values are still saved as text. Okay, it is not going to be interpreted as numeric. Hence, it's telling macro is a facility which is a text processing facility. All right. So how it is text and how it's like, here you are subsetting this data for the numeric value for the year 2011. If I convert this code to be saved as a macro, this value, though it's numeric, but it is still going to be saved as a text type of value. Okay, so why it is saving text type and how it is processing, all that we'll be seeing in detail. But at this point, just understand that macro is a facility which is a text processing facility. All right. So the same, you have a question upcoming. It's a setup of a poll. A macro facility is dash processing facility for automating and customizing your SAS code. So how you'll fill up this blank?
Text.
Absolutely. Yes, it's a text processing facility. All right. So now let's understand a program flow. So before moving to this program flow, a quick revision for your previous SAS programming concept. So quick answer, okay? So whenever we are writing a macro program and you submit a macro program for processing, what are the phases occurs in the backend?
Compilation, execution.
Absolutely correct. So either it's your procedure step or a data step. Okay. Whenever you submit a program at the backend, in the memory, SAS performs two phases. One is the compilation and execution. So for me, Vikram and Arun, when we say we are writing a SAS program, it is actually a combination of a data step and a proc step. So the short form of procedure is termed as a proc step. All right. So this is covered actually in your base, but yes, to begin with, you have just attending macros, no worries. But I'm just giving you an hint or a gist about what a program of SAS consists of. So it consists of a mixture of steps, and those steps are always resolved around two steps, which is data and a proc step. So data is a step where one creates a data set, whereas proc is a step where one processes the data set. All right. So let's see the objective for this topic. So we'll identify the tokens in SAS program and we'll describe how a SAS program is tokenized, compiled, and executed. So when you submit a SAS program, very first thing what it does is, you are aware that at its backend it enters the phase of compilation. So before working or creating this compilation of your program, the code is first copied in the area of the memory called as input stack. Just is a virtual understanding that how it must be behaving or executing in the memory. Okay, it's just as a data analyst, you should be aware how the processing occurs at the back end. This is where the explanation is. So whenever you are submitting a program for processing in SAS, this program is always copied in the area of your memory, and that area is termed as input stack. From input stack, okay, so what it's telling, this program could be a combination either of a data or a proc step, or any global statements, or your SQL code, or your macro code, or your SCL language. SCL language is component language. It's mostly used in development of certain tools. Okay, so we are not into the part of it, but just understand that a SAS program, whichever is used for your business scenario as a data analyst, you write, it is when you submit it for processing, it is always copied to the area in the memory called as input stack. So this is what is just giving you the gist that this could be the combination of code which is executed by a programmer, but at the back end it's copied to the area called input stack. So either it could be a combination of a data or a proc step, or a macro program, or a program. This is mostly when you work with a non-interactive batch mode. So why it's called as non-interactive? It's because whenever we use a operating system of Linux or Windows where SAS has been installed, it uses windowing interfaces. Why windowing? Because as I said you that we have windows for our program like code, log, result. Correct? So this is windowing, or we call it as multiple windowing session or interactive sessions. Okay. But when you have a operating system of mainframe, okay, so that is called as non-interactive session, because in mainframe you have only a code window which you will be executing, and you will be submitting that code at a specific time. Okay, so hence it's called as a batch mode also. So why it's in that way in some of the tasks? Earlier it was earlier people were using mainframe as an operating environment. Very rarely people are using this mainframe. People are mostly using the applications of SAS which are installed and can be used without any hassles on windowing environment and Linux environment. Okay, so when it comes to batch environment in the organization, now people must be aware or might have heard from somewhere that in organization we do not have always single tool user people or single software user people or a programmer who is writing code only with SAS. You may have in the organization people are using various techniques, and various techniques might be writing their own program. So in that case, when you have a mainframe application or a mainframe operating environment, there is a time slot provided for every program to be executed. Okay, so we have people who are writing programs with Java, with C, C+, or with other languages also. So when we are going to work on SAS environment in batch application or in batch environment, you have to provide the source telling that this is from a particular team, and this is what a team is going to execute. So you write those introduction little lines. So most of the time this environment is no more used by the organizations. Okay, so we'll be focusing only on the tools which are been implemented on windowing and Linux applications. Fine. So let the code be of any type of SAS. It is always copied in the area of your memory called as input stack. All right. So from input stack, it goes to word scanner. Okay. So it's again another area in the memory which is called as word scanner. Please hold. I'll just have a sip of water. All right. So in case now this was the code which I have submitted. So this code by default, it's copied in the area which is termed as input stock in the memory, input stack. From input stack, it is copied to word scanner. Okay, so these are the steps. So these are the flow of how your program processes. Okay, so this is a general process altogether. So when it comes to word scanner, what happens? Okay, so the word itself is word scanner. That means it scans every word of your program. Okay, so that's what it's telling. When SAS code is in the input stack, a component of SAS called as word scanner does the following. It reads the text in the input stack character by character from left to right, from top to bottom. And it breaks the text into fundamental units called tokens. Just read this slide carefully.
How about periods, special characters?
We'll see one by one. At this point, just understand what happens to the code when from input stack, where it goes in the area in the memory called word scanner. And the word scanner, what it does, it scans the word, okay? It can scans your program. So we'll see how this process works. At this point, just understand this, all right?
This
So
current
it's telling it, yes,
is, I mean, in this current slide, does this mean it has 3 tokens?
okay. In this word scanner, yes, you have 3 tokens. So we'll see these tokens also. So it will break every individual word or individual part of your program, which is termed as fundamental units, and we call it as tokens. Fine. So what are tokens and what are the types of tokens? So this is the program flow which we had seen. So ideally, the word scanner recognizes 4 tokens of your code. Okay, or there are 4 types of tokens. So now this was the code where it's a data step, which is copying step by step or statement by statement into word scanner. So the first statement is taken. Now you know the every statement ends with semicolon, hence the statement in word scanner. So what it will do, it will start tokenizing. So there are 4 types of tokens. So it's telling name token. So all the words are termed as name tokens. See, highlighted part, word, it's a word. Okay. So here, though it's a word, but it's not highlighted. Why? Because this is put into quotation. So it will token it or it will name it, or its type of token is a slight different token. We'll see what type of token it is. So 4 types of token, it's called as name token. Then the second is special token. So special means all your special signs are termed as special tokens. All right. Then you have literal tokens. So anything which you have written into quotation, either single or double, it will treat as a whole as a single word. Hence, the whole thing is called as a literal token. And the last one would be the numeric or number token. Any code which consists of numbers, those are treated as number tokens. All right. Okay. Yes.
The number two in this current slide, before the number there is a period also. Does that come under special? No, the period
No.
part.
No. Sometimes what happens, the period is treated as a delimiter.
Mhm.
Delimiter means to separate your words. But when it sometimes, okay, but when it is in some areas, now when the period is used or when it is used as a delimiter, we'll see later. But at this point, that period is termed as a special sign. Okay. So if you have seen this earlier slide, special token, okay, period is termed as a special token in some scenarios, but here it is actually differentiating your letters with word with the number. So it's not considered as a special sign, but your digit is considered as a numeric token. All right.
Yes,
Okay, so the question here is blanks a token?
we didn't see it
No.
once.
All right. Why you tell blanks are not treated as tokens,
Delimiter.
Swarupa? Okay.
It's not as considered as a special, right? It is a default delimiter, right?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So blank separates the words. Hence, that is a default delimiter which separates the words even while tokenization. Hence, blanks are not treated as tokens. Okay, very good. So now how it works in tokenization. Look at here. A token ends when the word scanner detects or blank. So see, between data, bonus, semicolon, between data and bonus, you have a space. So this becomes one token, this becomes second token, this becomes the third token. So these two are your simple tokens, or we call it as word tokens, whereas this is your special token. So these are name tokens, these are special token. Okay. And a token begins, or when does a tokenization begins or ends, how SAS understand to end the tokenization. So the beginning of another token is the end for your previous token. Correct? So the maximum length for a token, that is the word, could be 32,767 characters long. Fine. So the beginning of another token is the end of tokenization of your previous token. Okay. Program flow, what happens to the tokens next? Okay. Now fine. Your code is copied to a memory called input stack. From input stack, it goes to word scanner. All good. In word scanner, the word itself, it scans the word, means it starts tokenizing. This is also good at this point, but post tokenization, what is happening? So SAS actually copies this code to a area in the memory called as compiler. Okay, so it's called as compiler. So it at this area of the memory where you get the error message. So during compilation, if you remember in data step we saw, during compilation here we get this syntax error message, right? So how it works, let's see. So from scanner, every token or every word is written to compiler. So this compiler will receive the every token until it receives the end of your statement, and it keeps on receiving the tokens until it receives the run statement, which is end of your step. Okay, so it's telling word scanner passes tokens one at a time to the appropriate compiler. Now here the word is used appropriate compiler. Why? We'll see it. But at this point, just understand this is your simple SAS program. So it goes to a compiler as compiler demands. So what compiler does? So it requests tokens until semicolon received. So semicolon is received, that means end of a statement. So it will keep on receiving the another statements until it receives the end of your step, which is run. So this will do syntax check in compiler area for your tokens which have received. It will repeat for each statement and the cycle process for each code. And what SAS will do? SAS will understand a step boundary encountered when it encounters in your program a run statement or a quit statement, which is the end of your step. Okay, so when there is a run statement or a quit statement which is encountered by a compiler during compilation phase, then starts the execution phase for that code where SAS comes into picture. What SAS will do, it will step your boundary or your step boundary encounters, and it suspends the compilation. If no compilation error, it will execute the compile code, repeat for each step within your program. All right, understood what is happening at the back end if you are aware with our compilation and execution phases.
So Ashwini, it will check only for the syntax error, or like when sometimes like we misspell also, that time it goes again and do the step.
Misspell is a syntax error, correct?
Uh-huh. So like data, but it doesn't stop there, right? That's what it says, right? It will stop.
No, 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 no. Syntax error always stops your code processing, right? That's why you get the red mark in log when you get a syntax error and it tells your data step did not process. So it stop your data step there and there. So you have two types of errors. One is syntax error and data error. So when data error is not at all anything related to your syntax, correct? It's all related to your instructions which are not correct as per your input data values. So that time we term it as data error. Okay, Swarupa?
Yeah.
So data error is not a part of this. It's only related to your compilation phase, which is checking your syntax errors.
Okay.
Okay. So misspelled keyword, it's a syntax error. it occurs at the time of compilation. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Others, I hope it's understood what Swarupa was trying to ask the question.
Yeah, if we get across a syntax error, then and there the processing is stopped.
Correct. Absolutely. So this is how the program flow looks. Look at here. How does the macro fit in it? Now this is a simple SAS program. Okay. So whenever a macro language encounters within the program, the tokenization happens. And while tokenization, when it encounters a macro program, it does not go to your normal SAS compiler, but it goes to a special compiler called as macro compiler. Okay. And how SAS encounters there is a macro language within your SAS program. Anything which starts with ampersand and a name, okay, that is a macro variable. It is a trigger to understand that it's a macro language. Anything which starts with percent sign and a name token followed with a name token, it could be either a statement or a function or a call. So it's termed as a macro language. So how SAS understands that within your program you have a macro language? So there are macro triggers. So those triggers encountered are with two signs, ampersand and percent sign. So anything which is with starting with ampersand and ending or followed with a name token, it's a macro variable. So if you remember in base SAS, you got an introduced to how one can create a macro variable with percent let, and you had created a macro variable called type, and you refer it in your program as ampersand type. I hope you remember.
Yes.
Others,
Yes.
okay. So for a quick introduction, like for example, I'm writing this proc print. Now proc print is simple procedure which is generating a list report. I'm working on a data on your SAS help library dot cars. Okay. So I'm going to select specific variable, suppose make, model, origin, type. Okay. Type is the column from my table and I simply use run. So when I execute this, it will process your input table called SAS help.cars. And because you have selected only four columns or four columns only as per the order which we have written in our program, in the same order, this four columns are appearing into result window. See, and you'll find actually if you have observed this SAS help cars, it is having total 428 rows. So when you see the report of your current program, it will tell you that it is having all the rows coming into your output. So this is how the result window shows the result. Whereas log, this is what the instructions is given, that you have executed or you have submitted this proc step. On this proc step, you have two notes. It's telling it has read so many observations from your input table named as sashelp.cars, and it's telling procedure used. So it's simple a list report where it's listing all the rows from this table with only the columns which you had specified in your program, and it's showing the output. Hence, the second note is telling procedure print used. Okay, but now the result which is executing is on all the car types. See, the car types are, if you see, it has sedan, it has SUV, it has hybrid, wagon, truck, sports. So I want to generate a report to check what are the how many cars I have in my report, only for those whose car type is supposed truck. So normally what you do, you write a where statement and you give the instructions where the column truck consists of the value, sorry, not truck, where the column type. Okay, so type is the column which consists the value for truck, which has the value truck. And of course, because it's your character value, see to it it's case sensitive, because in your data you have truck value as provided in the same way. See, sedan S is capital, wagon W is capital, sports S is capital, SUV, the value is like this. In case if you give small t for your truck, then it will not be able to select the values, correct? So moving back into your program, if I have used this small t and I execute it. So where is to subset your rows, correct? So now when I execute this program, it's telling here zero observations. Why it's telling zero observations? On this condition, it's not selecting this values for type value as truck. We had seen we do have type truck values, but why we are not getting the result? Yes,
Case sensitive.
absolutely. It will be able to select the values from your data only depending on how the values in data are. Now in our data, we do not have small case t for truck, hence we recorrect it and submit it. So you get the result only for truck. So if you check your log, your check gives you the information. Now out of 428 rows, it is just subsetting on this criteria to select the observations depending on where type is truck. It is showing there are only 24 rows which is selected from this table, and it is using this where criteria and proc print used. Okay. Now, as per your business requirement, you want to see the report for car whose type is suppose SUV. So as a data analyst, are you going to again rewrite this code, copy this and type it? Suppose it's a new session and just do the changes here as SUV. Is it feasible for you every time to do this manually?
No.
Absolutely. So in that case, either now we are going to make use of your macro facility. So either you will be automating this code or you will be substituting this value with a symbolic reference. So for that, what we'll be doing is we'll write %let. Okay. I'm going to create a variable, suppose called its name is suppose the same name as my column, no problem. And I tell that initially I provide its initial value as truck. Okay. And if you want to check that what actually this is doing, so if you have observed this, it's starting with %sign followed with a name token. Okay, so this is called as a macro trigger. So it's the same thing which we had seen on the slide. During word scanning, two token sequence are recognized as macro triggers. Anything which starts with ampersand followed with a name token is your macro variable. Anything which starts with % followed with the name token is termed as a statement or a function or a call. So in our case, this is termed as a statement. Why? Because it's starting it with %let, okay, and it's ending with a semicolon. So it's a macro statement. So when this statement is submitted, now I'm submitting the statement. This statement is going to follow the rule from input stack to word scanner. And when it comes to word scanner, now because it's a macro trigger, it will not go to your normal compilation, but it will go to your macro compilation. I'll come to that also. But understand this is your macro statement or it's a macro trigger. Okay. So how I'll check whether this type is absolutely created with the value truck. So this is called as a macro variable and this is its value. Okay. So how do I check this macro variable? I use another statement of your macro called %put, and I want to check the value for your macro variable called type. So this macro variable is always referred with an ampersand sign. So this is termed as a macro variable. So again, this is a macro trigger. So now when I execute this %put statement, again this %put is a macro statement. So it will be processed in macro processor. How it works, we'll see. So what this ampersand type, it's actually the value called truck. Now because I have provided the truck value with quotation, the values are saved as it is with quotation. But we are going to avoid give the quotation marks here and let's re-execute the same thing. Hence, your ampersand type is the value which is resolving to truck. And in your program currently, no need of again rewriting proc print. The same proc print can be used multiple time. Now, instead of typing the value of truck like this, I'm going to replace it with its symbolic representation with ampersand type. Okay, so what is ampersand type? It's nothing but the value truck. How it is created? With this command, and it is saved in the memory as ampersand type as a macro variable, and the value will be saved as struct. Now look at this. When I execute my proc print, you'll find that I have got the result without writing in my where the subsetting value for truck. I've used a macro facility and I get this output for all truck values. Now, in case I want the same program, but I want to generate the report where I want to generate the report for type is SUV. So tell me what are the changes in this current program you will be doing it.
Just changing in the macro state.
Absolutely. In this percent let statement, only change this value as SUV. Now, because this column type is a character variable, we are telling SAS to subset the data by giving in quotation marks with ampersand type. So re-execute the whole thing. See, you get the same code executed with a different value, with a different report. And now see, it is subsetting the rows for your type, which is telling it has only 60 rows from out of 428 type of cars. 68 are the values for SUV among your data. Correct? So this is how your macro makes your task simple. So I just wanted to show you this because this is again a combination of program which consists of your base SAS code with proc step and also a macro triggers. Correct? So this is a program combination of SAS, base SAS program and a macro language program. So when you submit these types of programs, so during your compilation phase, wherever SAS finds that it is a macro language, how it understands it's a macro language program with these two symbols, percent and ampersand. So when it's a percent followed with a name token, it is treated as a statement or it is actually a statement of macro, and anything with ampersand followed with a name is a macro variable. All right, are you getting it now?
Yes.
Okay, Shanmuga.
Yes, Ashwini, can you hear me?
Yes, but I hope you're understanding it.
Yes.
Great. Vikram, so far I know you people have not attended base SAS, but so far at least this concept is clear. Are you able to follow? Vikram, Arun, do we have both of you with us?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
this
can
is
follow.
Okay, great. Fine. So this was all about just showing you the combination of macro program and your base SAS program. So what is the code? Mostly may have a combination of base and macro language. So how SAS distinguish between your base SAS program and a macro language program? So this is what it's telling. Then when it comes to word scanner, how it process. So as I said you earlier also, it was telling here the word scanner passes tokens one at a time to the appropriate compiler at the compiler as the compiler demands. So when it says apply up like appropriate compiler, it's actually trying to tell you that when you have a simple base SAS code, it goes to your normal compiler. But when your program consists of a macro trigger, during word scanning, when SAS encounters, there are macro triggers that is not processed in your normal compiler, but it is go to the area in the memory which is termed as macro processor. So your macro processor executes macro triggers, including macro variable, resolution, macro language statement, macro functions, and macro calls requesting tokens as necessary. So as a data analyst, you should know what is happening at the back end. That is why this all details of explanation is coming here. Okay. So you should be aware when you submit a program, what is a compiler, what is a word scanner, what is an input stack, and your macro processor. Okay. So how a macro statement in your programming is defined. So it's telling the following are the characteristics of macro trigger. It always begins with a person sign followed with a name token. It ends with a semicolon. So we have two examples here. So what are your two macro statements here?
Percent click, percent put.
Absolutely correct. Because it's starting with person sign followed with a name token ending with a semicolon. Same goes here. So this becomes your macro language statements. Okay. Then it's telling it represents a macro trigger. Yes, person sign is a representation of your macro trigger and they are executed by your macro processor. So this is what, in case when you are creating a macro variable and you want to check the value of your macro variable, we use person put statement. Your put is nothing but a statement or a keyword where you see the values into log. And that is why in macros, we use person put to check the value of your macro variable being created. So it writes the text to the SAS log, writes to column one of the next line, writes a blank line if no text is specified. So quotation marks are not required around the text when you write this way. See, it's a simple text. It's like a statement, invalid code, exclamation. So when I write the same thing here again, so I write person put, I use invalid code with explanation semicolon. Now just understand how it looks or how it will be seen in log. Okay. So I execute this person put. Anything we write with a put statement, it will always show the text value in log. See, invalid code with exclamation, though exclamation is a special sign, but it's a part of your text. It shows as it is into your log. Fine. Understood?
Yes.
Great. Priyanka, Dharni, Nilima,
Ashwini, what is that right
Shanmuga.
in the person put statement slide? If you go back to that. Yeah, the second point writes to column one of the next
That
line.
will see when we come with column values.
Ashwini,
Yeah.
so is the macro only like reading semicolons or these as a special? Because it could read exclamation as a special token too, right?
It is tokenizing. Tokenizing is only it's for his understanding the what are the various values within your code. That
Mm-hmm.
is called units, which are tokens. So yes, exclamation becomes a special sign, a special token, but it's a part of your statement. Hence, in log, it shows you invalid code with exclamation. It's a part of your text, correct? So it will
Yes.
show you as it is in the log. Yes, it is a special token because it's special sign. So in case if I write the same code like this, basically they are just trying to tell you that person put is a statement to check the values in log, same as with base size we saw with put log, correct? So in case if I write here 3, so now 3 while processing the code in the backend, it will going to take it as a numeric token, but yes, it's a part of your text. It will show you as it is in log. Are you getting it?
Oh, okay, yeah. That's statement,
That's
right?
what I was telling you. It's same like a put log statement of base SAS. But because here it's a macro, we have to indicate with person put. So anything you write with person put, it will show you the in log. It's just to debug. Okay, it's like your debugging technique, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So quotation marks are not required around text. Person put statement is valid in open code. That means As you know, put log can be written anywhere. Same thing, %put is also written anywhere in your program. So it's not restricted that it should be written only in your data or a proc step. Now look at this flow. You had written the same code, see. So you had submitted it. So when you submit it, it's the SAS responsibility how it is going to process. So when you submit, SAS is going to copy it into the memory area of input stack. From input stack, it goes to word scanner. The word scanner means it starts scanning your words. So because your word consists a special sign with % followed with a name, it is an indication to SAS it's a macro trigger. Hence, this will not be going to normal compiler for compilation, but this will be processed to macro processor. Got it? So because it's a %put statement, anything with %put, this code will be shown into log. Understood? So your macro processor does the following: request token until a semicolon is encountered, executes the macro language statement. That's it. So it keeps on taking the tokens from word scanner in macro processor until it encounters the end of a statement or a step, and then it is executed. That's what it's telling. Execution of macro language occurs only in macro processor. All right.
So from macro processor directly it goes to execution phase.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll see that also in upcoming slides. But at this point, only remember these basic steps. Okay. Yes.
Yes, Ashwini.
Yes, Ashwin.
Okay, good. And that's all about this chapter. Okay. So let's quickly check for the very first lesson exercise. Okay. So this it's all about you are asked to create the library that you have done, macro facility, program follow, and exercise. So I would request you to come this exercise on page 1-28, level 1. So it's telling writing text to the SAS log with %put statement. Okay. So you can check this and answer these questions. Then come to level 2 also. Then we'll discuss all this. So I would request you to come to page 1-28 and start working on it. Whereas meanwhile, Vikram and Arun, I'll just send you an email for the link for connecting your SAS Studio. Okay. Before it, you'll have to create your profile. I'll show you how to create it. You just be in the session. Rest of you who have known how to work on this on SAS Studio, go ahead with this exercise. So in one of your exercises where you have this %put statement with this word note colon, warning colon, error colon. Now what are this? If you have observed your log carefully earlier also in one of your programs, we were getting these keywords, correct? About note, error, correct? I hope you remember. Yes. So
Yes,
note,
Yes,
warning,
Ashwin.
errors, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
when we are submitting this %put along with that notes, colon, warning, error, okay? So see, it's showing here red mark. Okay, that means the %put statement which you have used, as we could see the keyword which is error with caps along with the colon and this statement, it shows as it is as an error. Okay, same, your warning, it's in caps with colon, it comes in green. Okay, so Arun and Vikram just understand the concept here. And the note, which is your caps, it's a keyword, it comes with colon. So it's same thing here. So this is the same thing if we had observed this earlier in one of our program previously. It's program 1 window. Okay, so let's check your log. See how earlier the note appears. See, correct. So for your current code also, the note is coming in the same way. right? Now, in case the same code, if you try to change this colon with hyphen and check what is the log showing you. So what changes you see in the log is, it shows you only the text which is followed with note when I change my colon to hyphen into blue. Now I hope you people are now aware that when we get error, it comes in red color. When we have note, it comes in blue color. When it's showing you warning, it comes in green color, correct? So here the statement which you have written note with hyphen, it's not the keyword which is coming into log. It's only the text showing you in blue color, because you have changed the pattern of your keyword note to become along with the hyphen and not with colon. Hence, it's not showing as note colon. This is the SAS note as a full text as a blue color, but it's only showing you its text. Now, if I change this into a small case, okay, and check it, how it comes into log. So it's showing as this whole thing is a simple text, therefore person put shows this as a simple text into log as it is. So it's not at all treating this as a keyword. Hence, this is case sensitive. These words are case sensitive and it always comes with colon. So if you check this along with your other keywords with warning and error, you find its original way of representing into log. See? Understood the gist of this exercise?
Yes,
Yes,
Ashwini.
Ashwini.
Great. Vikram, hope you are following what I'm trying to tell.
Oh yeah, I'm
Nilima,
following.
great. Nilima, Dharni, Priyanka,
Yes, sir.
Shanmuga,
Yes, Ashwini.
Swarupa,
Yes.
Yes,
great.
yes, Anjali.
Good.
Yes, Ashwini.
So this was just one thing which I wanted to explain. And in level 2, I think it's special characters. So see, this is one statement, okay? Understand what I just or what they were trying to tell you to understand. So it's a person put, can you display a semicolon? Okay. In your person put statement. Now understand, I'm executing the whole thing as a single statement with a person put. So it's giving me an error. So what error? First of all, though it is person put statement, which is followed with this statement with semicolon. Now this semicolon is actually end of your person put statement. Hence, this is a part of text between your person put and semicolon. It's showing it as it is. Now in SAS, we know the rule is that a statement ends with a semicolon and a new statement begins with an identifying keyword. But here it's treating this as a new statement. So for SAS, it's not, it is starting, but it's also ending with semicolon, but it's not starting with identifying keyword. So this is going to be your syntax error. Therefore, in second processing in your macro processor, it's treating this part to be as an independent statement because it's ending with semicolon, but it's not starting with a keyword. Hence, it's an syntax error and it's telling statement is out of proper order. But post this during your macro processing, okay, it is treating, it's getting a macro trigger again. So this becomes, and it treats this as a statement which ends here as a semicolon with for person put. Hence, for that person put statement with your question mark is a part of person put. Hence, it's showing you in log. Understood now how it is processing?
Yes,
Followed it? Shanmuga, Priyanka, Swarupa.
Yes, yes,
yes,
Ashwini.
Ashwini.
Great. So this is just a simple understanding for your person put. That's it, nothing else. So it was just an introduction to your macro facility. Now Next lesson is all about your chapter 2, which is your macro variables. So in our next class, we'll get introduced to macro variables. Okay. We'll get introduced what are automatic macro variables, what are user defined macro variables. We'll see how one delimits macro variable and what are macro functions. So this will be covering in our next class. So for today, we'll stop our day. Any doubts for today's topic? Any queries?
No.
No,
No?
Ashwini.
As of now, all
No,
good? Great. So the new joiners, Arun and Vikram, I know it's a new thing for you because we are starting directly from macros, but I hope whatever you have attended today, you have understood the concept. Vikram, Arun.
Oh yeah, I have.
Great. So we'll be stopping for the day today. So if you want, you can go through the PDF for your reference. All right. And on Tuesday evening, same time, 9:30 p.m. EST, will be meeting again for your lesson number 2. All right. So meanwhile, see you all. Take care. Bye and good night. Thanks for
Okay,
attending.
Ashwini.
Yeah. Thank you
thank you,
for attending.
Ashwini.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Ashwini. Bye-bye.
Have a good day, Ashwini. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you.